So I remember when I entered inside my Spanish class, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing my Spanish teacher walk up to me. Now, I thought she was gonna give me like a quick lesson of some sorts, but let's just say the lesson she gave me was the lesson of love, if that makes any sense. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy but also insane story. Now, I know I haven't uploaded on this channel for a while, and that was because I literally just moved into a house, and yeah, as you guys can see, I am not in the old setup anymore, so I apologize, but the stories are coming back. Today's story takes place back when I was in grade 10. Now, my grade 10 year, I was a massive player. And one thing I always thought of was, what was the best way to pull girls in a more, I guess, cultural way? Because back then, I used to live in Canada. And in Canada, let's just say it was made up with a bunch of different countries put together. Kind of like the United States. Yeah. Literally the same thing. But I remember in my mind, I thought it'd be a great idea to take a language. Now, I was thinking French at first, but for some reason, French people get really aggravated and really annoying really quick. No offense to all my French people that are watching. I love you guys, but seriously, chill out a bit. So what I decided to do was take the second best language that was in my school, and that was Spanish. Now, I don't know any Spanish. Funny enough, I live with a Spanish person right now, and I barely understand what he's saying. And let's just say Spanish people have their own sort of riz. I don't know what it is to be exact, and I never really understood it, but let's just say they have special words and special, I guess, ways to kind of like pull girls in, which is unique. But to be fair, Latino girls are really attractive. If anything, honestly, if you're Latina and you're hot and your mom's single, hit me up. Never mind, going on with the story. Anyways, I remember I ended up signing up for Spanish class in my grade 10 year, and for my second semester, I walked into my first Spanish lesson. Now, when I walked in there, I remember I ended up seeing a lot of guys in there, funny enough. I guess I was the only guy thinking of this idea, but also there was a lot of different Spanish women that were there just to get a quick, easy grade, which, to be honest, is kind of crazy how they allow Spanish people inside a Spanish class, even though they already speak Spanish at home. Kind of makes things broken, I guess, but free credit is free credit. Like, I can't argue with that. Going on from there, I remember I sat down in my Spanish class and, I was looking around until the Spanish teacher walked in. And that's when everything changed. No joke. I saw the Spanish teacher and I almost fell in love. The way she looked and the way of how thick she was with her amazing bootay. Can I say that without getting demonetized? I don't know, but that's not the point. Literally, no joke. When I saw the Spanish teacher, I fell in love. She looked so good. She looked attractive. And no joke, I don't think any guy in my class couldn't keep their eyes off her. She was so perfect in some way that actually kind of blew my mind. I remember she walks up in front of the classroom and she's like, "Okay, class, so today we're gonna be learning the basics of Spanish." And when she said that, bro, I got kind of excited. Like, she actually looked really good. So I remember the whole time when she was teaching us and talking, I just kept staring at her. Once again, I don't want to get in trouble by YouTube. So going on, I kept staring at her and one thing led to another. I actually really started to enjoy Spanish class a lot more. And if anything, I remember it even got to a point where one of the guys that was sitting behind me ends up taking a photo of the Spanish teacher with his cell phone. Yeah, he literally took a photo of the teacher. And the way I noticed was literally because I saw him whip out his phone like this and literally just go boom, that quickly. And I'm like, bro, seriously? It was super weird, but I didn't blame him. Even got to the point where after class, people were walking up to him knowing that he took the photo and asking him, "Yo, bro, can you send me that photo? I want to have a good night tonight." Whatever that means. But as a high schooler, or used to be a high schoolers are naturally weird. Comment down below what year of high school are you in, or what grade are you in? I remember days went on and this Spanish teacher started to realize that she was not really getting through to the students and actually teaching them Spanish, but teaching them how to look at her tatas. Is that Spanish for cherries? I don't know, but not the point. And it got to the point where even the principal was noticing that the grades of the Spanish class were going down, which he was confused about because there were Spanish people in that class. And not only just that, but there were also just a bunch of dudes in that class that were really excited about taking that course. So for the principal to realize that for some reason a lot of the class was failing really made him puzzled and confused. So I remember it was like the second week in our Spanish class and our principal ends up walking in, sitting down and watching us take a Spanish course. I remember we were all sitting there and we actually tried to like somewhat pay attention. I am not joking though. At the same time, this Spanish teacher would wear the most tightest outfits ever, to the point where it made it almost mission impossible to actually focus on what she was saying. And that's when halfway through the class, right after the teacher said, "Okay, class, any questions?" we all end up literally being silent. And that's when the principal stands up and says, "Ma'am, I think I know what the issue is here." "Oh, what's the issue?" You see, we have a dress code in the school that students need to follow. And, from what I'm seeing, you need to follow it as well. At that moment, I remember there was a guy in my class that was trying to stand up for the teacher being like, "Hey, appreciate her body. Her body makes us realize that we need to be more fit and better. That's great, son, but this is Spanish class, not PE. I'm not gonna lie, the principal got him there with that one. And that's when the Spanish teacher ends up getting up and leaving the classroom. And she went actually to the parking lot to go to her car and get ready. As for me in my grade 10 year, well, I actually had a car as well, funny enough. It was a Toyota Celica GT, and it was like my sports car, I guess you would say. It's not actually a sports car, don't search it up, but it could be if it wanted to be, right? 2 doors, looks nice. No? Okay. Anyways, I remember when she left the classroom, the principal basically ended class, and I also ended up heading to the parking lot to put my backpack in my car, knowing that lunch was up next, and I wanted to drive to the mall and get lunch. But when I walked inside the parking lot, I ended up seeing my Spanish teacher there, and she was sitting on her car hood, kind of just head down and really upset. I was super confused on why, so I walked up to her and I'm like, hey, is everything okay? Oh, no, Baba. I'm very upset. I didn't know that the students only looked at me for my body. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you are a really attractive woman, so you gotta understand, like, we're just high schoolers. You know, for you to realize that's very mature, Baba. Yeah. Thanks, is what I said, questioning what in the world she meant by that. But then afterwards, she ends up looking at me and she says, oh, so why are you in the parking lot? Oh, I was about to drive my car and go to the mall and get some food. Oh, do you want company? You know I'm allowed to do that, right? Oh, I know that, Baba. Don't worry. I just want to know if you need someone to hang out with. Now, on this day, funny enough, all the boys that I usually hung out with were out on a field trip. So I really had no one else to hang out with at lunch. So I said, why not? I ended up basically getting my teacher and we ended up sitting in my car driving away. I already know there were some students from my Spanish class that definitely saw me rolling out with my Spanish teacher. And I gotta say, I have ultimate riz. So I remember we ended up driving away and it got to the point where it was super weird because, you know, I don't really know what to do when a teacher's in my car. But we started driving to the mall. When we got there, we ended up getting Subway and sitting down and talking. And that's when this teacher started telling me a bit about herself. She said things like, I don't know, like, I want to get like a professional education because my last career wasn't good. What was your last career? I'm not allowed to say. It could get me off the school board. Oh, well, I won't say anything. Oh, well, I used to make videos online. Now, when I heard that, I thought she was maybe like some undercover famous YouTuber or something, but her actual career was a bit something else. I think you guys know where I'm heading with this. Oh, no, it's from a website that you don't want to know. At that moment, I started questioning things, but honestly, I didn't want to get too personal with it because I didn't want to make it weird between me and her. So one thing leads to another. We end up finishing eating and we end up driving to her house. I end up dropping her off at her place, but then she ends up telling me, oh, Baba, you have off block after this. Why don't you come inside and I can make you a quesadilla? 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 I don't know what it's called, but basically it was like a chicken tortilla sandwich. I don't know what else to call it. But basically, I ended up saying, hey, why not get more food? So I ended up going inside her place. And when I sat down, she had a beautiful apartment that she lived in. And this is where everything goes very illegal. Yes, illegal because students and teachers are not meant to devil's tango. But I remember I was sitting in her kitchen just eating this quesadilla that she made me. And it got to the point where my teacher said, okay, well, I better get changed and ready for the next class. So she ends up actually going to like her bedroom and getting changed. But one thing she forgot to do when she was going inside her bedroom was actually closing the door. So as I'm eating this quesadilla, I'm looking over at her and I'm just seeing her like taking off everything. And well, obviously I was in grade 10. So at that moment, I ended up getting bricked. I got so bricked, in fact, to the point where the bar stool that I was sitting on that was at her kitchen literally made it super visible because I was wearing sweatpants that day that I was, yeah, you know, I don't want to get into it really, but you know, it got to a point where it was awkward. And I remember when this teacher ended up coming out with wearing something more covered up, I thought my thing would go down, you know, my eggplant. But surprisingly, it did. Well, not surprisingly, she was hot, but not the point. Surprisingly, it ended up rising a bit more. And she ended up walking in the kitchen saying, oh, Baba, you can't go to school like that. I can't? Yeah, no. Here, come with me. She ends up grabbing my wrist and taking me to her bedroom. And yeah, we did the devil's tango. Kind of crazy, I know, but at the same time, I mean, like, you know, she was teaching me some Spanish in there. Kinda, maybe. No, not really. Yeah, not at all. But honestly, from there, we ended up telling each other that we weren't going to say anything. And once we drove back to the school, my off block was about to be over. And when me and her parked the car and we got out, the principal was outside. No joke. He was outside and he saw us walking into the school together. And that's when he walks up to me and says, Baba, where were you? It was my off block, sir. Yeah, it was, but why were you with her? She was giving me private Spanish lessons because I asked her. So if I go and ask her that, would she say the same thing? Probably not. Yeah, not gonna lie, after 2 weeks later, that Spanish teacher actually ended up getting fired. But hey, at the same time, she was super hot and she went back to doing online content. Once again, can't say what, but I think you guys can guess. Moral of the story is, don't do your teachers, even if they're Spanish.